School is important, he told them, but for most people, it's the end, not the beginning. And the key for the boys was to learn to use their emotions to think, not to think with their emotions. They must learn to choose their thoughts. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, JLW, and thank you all so much for joining me for Stand on Business episode 55, I'm pretty sure. Recently, I had to be on a plane to go see some graduations. If you've seen episode 53, you know what I'm talking about. And while I was on those planes, it was a reminder of why I hated flying, because I hate being squished up in a seat amongst a bunch of other people as we all figure out how to pass 8 to 12 hours in the sky. But this time I decided I wasn't going to watch any of the movies. Instead, I was going to read or catch up on some of the books that I'd bought, because I've gotten like 6 or 7 books that I just feel like I've never had the time to sit down and read. So this time I sat down and caught up on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a book I'd been meaning to read for a long time. I'd bought it I want to say a couple years ago. I bought my brother a copy of the book first because he was really, really into the idea of business. Anyway, these flights presented me the opportunity to sit down and give this book a chance, and that's exactly what I did. So on both flights that I had, I read chapter 1. We're just talking about chapter 1 today, right? Just chapter 1 of this book. So I don't know what happens later on, but for chapter 1 of the book, I love it because he introduces how he learned these concepts by giving us child version of him. And child version of him basically says that there were 2 individuals in his life that were instrumental when it came to his financial literacy. And as he breaks it down, financial literacy is basically the language of money, of speaking money. And he had the rich dad, or let's start with the poor dad. He had the poor dad, which apparently is his real life dad, who actually had a high paying job, right? But could never be financially secure for a multitude of reasons that we'll get into. And then he had his rich dad, which was his friend's dad, who, although at the time wasn't making a crazy amount of money, was on the trajectory to go on to be, at the very least, a multi-millionaire, because he owned a bunch of businesses in Hawaii. So he frames these 2 individuals as his rich dad and his poor dad. Now his rich dad teaches them financial literacy through real world example. In other words, he's not giving them a book to go read. He's not coming up with a, per se, lesson plan that includes this amount of tests or quizzes or things that they got to go read. The lessons basically start with him hiring Richard and his friend to work in his store for 10 cents an hour. And while they're working in that store, they're doing the most mundane of tasks, which include like dusting off the cans and organizing shelves. And so they do that for a little bit and they get real bored and they kind of get fed up because they realize that they're being exploited, right? So anyway, after reading this first chapter, I was getting ready to land, and I went, this would be just a fascinating chapter to break down with you all on Stand on Business. So at the end of the chapter, they basically give you a bunch of quotes, and I think all of them come from the rich dad, and they basically ask you, and I'll read it direct here. It says, it's time to reflect. Ask yourself, what is Robert saying in this quote, and why does he say that? Okay, so I'm sorry. So these quotes come from Robert, but I think he learned them from the rich dad primarily. In this section, you do not need to agree or disagree with Robert. The goal is to understand what Robert is saying. Remember, this curriculum is designed to be cooperative and supportive. 2 minds are better than 1. If you do not understand what Robert is saying, do not shy away from it. Ask for help and understanding. Take the time to discuss each quote until you understand it, right? So the book is presenting itself as basically a lesson plan, right? A review of a lesson plan. So that's what we're going to do right now. I find a lot of this reflection valuable, and hopefully you do as well. So let's start with this first quote, which was, the poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. I think this one is pretty self-obvious or self-evident, right? More people in my life, people who have given me financial advice, especially like my father, right, have made it clear to me that you are only really making money when your money is making money when you're asleep, right? That's something we've all heard, right? When you're not doing anything throughout the day, your money is still working for you. And I think that the most basic way to kind of see that is, I'm the CEO, or not even the CEO, but I'm the owner of this. While I'm on vacation in Colorado or in Europe somewhere, and I'm enjoying time with my family, my corporations are still running. I've put people in place to continue to push out my product. That to me is your money making money I've already put the necessary investment, whether it was literally financial or the time, to build up this thing. And now I can allow it to continue to run and operate without me. And what's even better is that I can take the profits from over here and move it into my next venture, which is when I start getting into the venture startups or I start investing in other people. And then now I don't even really have to necessarily put as much time and effort and energy as I had to do with my original business. I just got to put some time and energy. Obviously, if you're a good businessman, you want to know what it is you're investing in. But in building this up, and then hopefully it does the same thing. And then guess what? That's stacking up. So not only am I getting money from over here, I'm getting money from over here. And then what? I can split that, and I'm doing that to 2 more. And then 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. You see what I'm saying? And now I'm generating crazy amounts of money. My money is literally going out and making money for me. And all I got to do is sit on the beach somewhere. If you're lazy, sit on the beach somewhere and enjoy my time, enjoy the fruits of my labor. And that's really, really, really hard to stomach, I think, for some, because for the majority of us, that's not our life. For the majority of us, we get up at 7 or 8 in the freaking morning. We, if we're good, shower, brush our teeth, and we go to work, and we have to sit somewhere, and we have to do something. And then at the end of the week, or at the end of 2 weeks, we get a paycheck that says, hey, that time that you dedicated at this building, that investment that you gave me, this is how much it is worth. Here's your money. Oh, but wait. You also got to pay Uncle Sam. You also got to pay the state. You also got to pay the health insurance. All of that's got to come out first. So really, all that time that you spend at that desk or outside working, it's worth this minus whatever the hell everybody else has got to take. And then you take that money and you do what with it? You spend it, right? So you're not actually using that money to generate income. You're not putting it into a business. You're not putting it into an idea. You're not putting it into something you own that in the long run should give you more money back. You're going out to buy jewelry. You're going out to buy a car. You're going out to buy food. You're going out to buy things that don't actually make money, so your money is not working for you. So there's the difference to me of an individual who is rich, making money literally in his sleep, and the rest of us who work to make money, that then we have to go back to work to make more money to make up for the money that we spent. Let's move on to the next quote. Now, I also want to say that this only works if you engage, so you have to also let me know your thoughts, because there are some things that I'm 100% going to miss or that I'm not going to properly articulate, because once you have the camera and the lights on you, you start saying weird things, and it's like, that's what I meant, kind of, but damn, I really could have honed in on that point. It was just me and you in a room right now talking. So please share your thoughts. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Life pushes all of us around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. Life pushes all of us around. Some people give up and others fight. I think this goes back to something that Robert had brought up about his rich dad and the lesson that he had imparted, because I had told y'all that at one point, Robert and his friend were working for the father for 10 cents, right? And Robert felt cheated because he had came to this father asking for financial advice on how to become rich. And that's what the dad had agreed to give him. I'm going to teach you how to become rich. After 3 weeks of doing this, he's like, I haven't learned anything new except how to dust cans. And then I've been taking my 10 cents and buying comic books. Like, that's not what you promised to give me. So he reacts angrily, and he starts to blame the father for not holding up his end of the bargain. And the rich dad basically tells him that you're doing what 99% of my employees do. I'm going to blame everybody around me for my situation, for the things that I'm facing right now. And because I do that, I'm not learning anything. I'm not growing from this. I'm simply staying stagnant in my emotions, in my anger, and giving myself basically a cop-out, giving myself a rope that I can hang myself with and basically be like, I don't have to do anything because it's not my fault that I'm in this situation. Versus an individual who takes this same situation and goes, okay, if I know that I do not enjoy working for an individual to get 10 cents every week, then what am I going to do to remove myself from the situation? How do I make sure that I never have to work for an individual who gives me 10 cents every week? What do I need? What moves do I need to make to get myself out of the situation? How much of this 10 cents do I need to save to buy something that allows me out of the situation, or invest in something that allows me out of the situation? Who do I need to talk to maybe move up and not have to be in the same situation where I'm making 10 cents, now I'm making 20 cents? But my point being that the individual who goes, I'm just going to blame the boss, and I'm going to blame the coworker, and I'm going to blame my parents, stays stagnant because they've hung themselves with this rope, and they're like, I don't need to take a look at myself and how I get out of this situation. All I need to do is yell and cry, and eventually somebody else will make my situation better, versus the individual who takes the lesson that's going to be imparted, that is being imparted, whether you choose to learn it or not, there's a lesson there, and uses it to their advantage. Now, granted, I think in this one particular, I'm blending it with another lesson or another quote, but I think that there's still, the truth is, there are individuals who become successful are the ones who take each and every moment that comes from the hardship of life and the situations that we're presented and uses that to their advantage. Let's move on. Stop blaming me and thinking I'm the problem. If you think I'm the problem, then you have to change me. If you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser. Now, this is what I mean by saying that I was blending some things together here, right? I was blending the individuals who can learn from any hardship situation, take the lesson away, and make it a positive. But I was also taking this quote right here, which is, like I said, blaming the people around you for your situation versus taking ownership of the situation. And even if it isn't really your fault, right? Still not trying to change or make somebody else do something for you, which is a lot harder than just going, I'm going to change something about myself. It could literally be, you know what? I'm going to remove myself from the situation. If I don't like my schedule at work, let's say I've been on this schedule of mornings that works well for me and my family for years, and then suddenly my manager decides that, you know what, it would be better if you work for me at night, and I'm not taking into consideration your feelings or your thoughts, you're going to nights. Of course, your initial reaction is anger, right? How could he do something like this to me, right? He's not even considering what my family needs or what my needs are. You're doing all of this. I'm blaming this person for not doing for me what I need, instead of going, okay, I don't like the feeling of not having control of my schedule. I don't like that my feelings weren't taken into consideration. So what do I need to do to address that problem and make it better for myself? What can I actively affect? And this is something that I've been saying for a long time to people that I care about. And if you've been around me, you know, you've heard me say it. Don't stress what you can't control, right? I cannot make that manager change his mind about that schedule. But what I can do is change my mindset about the schedule. Okay, cool. I'm going to work nights. But in the meantime, I'm going to go look for another opportunity that a lot better aligns with my schedule. I don't like working for this manager. Let me change the manager. Let me go to a situation where I might find myself more appreciated or valued. Or, because this is a mindset about ownership, okay, what do I need to do now to become an owner so that I control my schedule, right? Because at the end of the day, the boss only has to answer to one person, right? Of course, there's shareholders and all that, but we're not getting that deep. All I'm saying is that if you would like to control your schedule, own your schedule. How do you own your schedule? Own the product that's being supplied. Own your source of income. Okay, that's what I meant by blending the two right there. What are we going next to? Next, we're going to go to, when it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure, so passion does not direct them. Fear does. This one is going to take me a little bit, right? Let's say we're all starting at zero, right? I think what it's saying is the mindset between the person who gets rich and the person who doesn't is the mindset. This person over here is willing to take that last dollar and throw it into something they believe in. That's the passion, right? So whatever it is that they really want out of life, that they're really working towards, I will take that very last dollar, the dollar that I'm gonna need to eat or have a roof over my head, and I'm gonna put it towards this investment, and I could win. Saying I could lose, but I could win. And those are the individuals that win big and make it to the next level, versus the other individual who has on their last dollar is going, I'd like to start a video game company, but also, I really want to eat at KFC, so I'm gonna go eat at KFC. I think that is kind of what that quote is getting at. Those will follow, those who are willing to follow whatever it is that really guides their heart, that makes their blood run, that really is their purpose in this world, are willing to put it all towards it, versus those who are kind of stuck in the rat race and just trying to survive for the next day, are not willing to break free and spend whatever, even the extra $25 that they had, in doing something that may generate money for them. Because at the end of the day, this is all about trying to find a way to make money, your money make money for you, right? So I'm gonna go with that. That's what that means for that quote. Again, tell me if I'm wrong. I am open, so open to being wrong. I'd rather hear I'm wrong and get the dialogue than being told I'm right, or silence. Both of those suck. Most people given more money only get into more debt. Okay, this one I think not only is clear, I've felt this, right? Because as I've gone through life, I've made more and more money. I've gotten to a point where I've had, let's call it $30,000 just sitting in my savings account. And you would think that you can never go backwards. Like, this should put you in a position where you should always be good. However, I will find that money disappears just as quickly as if when I was only getting paid $500, right? Like, no matter how much more money I make, it still seems to disappear at the same rate, if not faster. And I think that is because we all can adjust to our level of income. There's call it a flaw, a human flaw, where as we make money, our brain automatically thinks that means more money to spend versus more money to save or more money to invest. It's okay, well, now I can afford to get that new car. I can afford that bigger house that I need. Maybe it's just as simple as I've always wanted to renovate the kitchen. Things that we don't necessarily actually need, things that we did fine without. Once we get a little bit more money, we start spending that money, and then suddenly more debt accrues. And if there's more debt and you got more money, well, then you're still playing the same playing field, right? You're still doing the same thing where although you're increasing your income, you're also increasing your expenses. And so that's I think that one's one that anybody who's ever seen a pay raise and goes, where the hell does that money go, knows that it's just more still going out than is actually coming in. We're not keeping any of it here. Even worse, we're not putting it somewhere where it can generate more income for us. So that makes sense. It's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or trade and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money, and they get angry at their boss. That was a long way of saying most people are instructed to follow a typical path. This path is not to make you rich. This path is not the path to ownership. This path is go to school to learn a job, learn the job to get a job to pay bills, and repeat the cycle. And that's it. And you become an employee versus an owner. And like, that is really, really, really scary because it is so ingrained in our world, especially in America, right? I'm sure that most Western countries, right? But like, as a kid, most of us are thinking, I think, I can be anything I want to be. But very rarely when you talk to a kid, is that kid telling you that I want to be a CEO. I want to open up my own business. I want an LLC. I want to control my own schedule. I want to control my destiny. I want the financial freedom. No, I want to be a race car driver. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a lawyer. I want to do things that are noble, absolutely noble, and absolutely should be admired and should be better paid than what they are. But at the end of the day, require you to work for somebody else and depend on their check to keep you alive. And so when you become a slave to that cycle of always depending on somebody else, that means you are always in fear of losing it because you can't control when it's coming. It can always be taken away from you. So all of your actions being dictated by that, the way you move, the way you talk, the way you act around people are dictated by the fear of losing your source of income. Because if you lose that source of income, then your other fears activate. Now where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? How am I going to take care of my family? And it really hit me when they were talking about learning a trade, right? Because you go out, let's think about in the old days, right? Like before schools were like an actual formal institution, right? You went to the carpenter down the street and you learned how to carpentry from that individual, right? Now you had an actual a skill that you could be used out in the real world, and you owned that skill. So people could come to you and be like, I'm willing to give you XYZ for this thing. And now you dictate your schedule and your freedom. You're an owner. Now, though, you go to a trade school or you go to a university for 4 years and you learn something, and then you're selling yourself to these corporations, to these people who have already established, hey, people who want carpenters, we're over here. So if you're a carpenter, you come to work for me. You're no longer a boss. That to me was super scary because it was such an easy switch of going, you have a skill that should generate money for you, that you should be able to dictate what your schedule is, how much money you charge, and instead you're looking for these businesses, these mega corporations, and saying, hey, I can do this thing, please hire me, give me a paycheck, put me on salary, make me an employee, let me give into my fear. Most people do not know that it's their emotions that are doing the thinking. This one was also a little bit more difficult for me to understand, right? Because this goes back to what they were saying about you got to make sure that you are using your emotions and that your emotions aren't using you, which is a lot easier said than done. there was a famous samurai that I can't remember right now. It was an individual who talked about how one of his advantages to every enemy he fought was that he was in control of his emotions, right?
Musashi, despite his fierce reputation as a warrior, was a master of emotional discipline. His battles weren't just fought with swords, they were won in the mind first. He knew that to act impulsively was to relinquish control, to let the external world dictate your inner state. So how can we cultivate this same level of discipline in our emotional lives? It starts with recognizing our emotional triggers and pausing before we react.
In this book, it is saying that you've got to do a better job of recognizing when you are feeling these emotions so that you can use it to make rational decisions that benefit you in the long run. Now, an example would be, again, Robert getting the 10 cents, reacting out of anger, going to storm into the dad's office, demanding, well, he's not really demanding anything, accusing him for being a con man, but then also threatening to quit, right? These are all things that are coming out of emotion. I'm saying things that I may not actually mean. I'm threatening to quit the job because I feel wronged, and the only way that I feel like I can get back at you is to remove my services. Things that may not in the long run benefit him, because like play it out like this. Say the rich dad is trying to teach you a lesson, a valuable lesson, an important lesson. You out of anger storm into the office and start saying you are a con man, you use people, you're a sick, vile, evil person. That rich dad who wanted to teach you a lesson might go, you know what? If that's how you feel, that's what it is. Lessons are done. You ain't got to worry about it no more. So you've closed off access to something that could have been beneficial to you in the long run because you reacted out of that emotion of anger, right? And that's like probably a basic example. But what I'm saying is that instead of letting the emotion of anger guide the things that are coming out of your mouth and your actions, recognizing that you're angry and figuring out what you can do about it. How can you help yourself use that emotion, right? I'm hoping that's correct. It feels correct. It feels close to correct, right? It's got to be in the ballpark. It's not a homer, but it's like definitely center field. Okay, a job is a really short-term solution to a long-term problem. God dog it, ain't this the freaking truth, right? A job is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. What is the long-term problem? We all want financial freedom. We all need financial literacy. Long-term problem is a whole bunch of people want to get to a point one day where they don't have to work, where I can just do what I want to do, the things that make me happy, and not have to worry about getting up and going to have to work for somebody. Here's the problem. Having a job today is rapidly meaning that you will probably have a job tomorrow, which means when you're in your 80s, you'll be working at Walmart or whatever version. Actually, those jobs probably won't even be around because we'll have AI and robots by then. But it used to be, right? Like you get to a certain age, you're supposed to retire and you can live on whether it is your pension, your 401k, or the government giving you a stipend, whatever. That is disappearing. So you getting a job today means what in the long term? Eventually, you're going to get too old or outdated. There's going to be somebody better or somebody cheaper, and you will be replaced. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Everybody has to stop working one day. So what are you doing today to make sure there is money waiting for you? Or I'm sorry, more importantly, to solve whatever your long-term problem is. What are you doing today to guarantee that when you get to the end of the road and it's all said and done and your knees ain't as good as they used to be and your mind isn't as quick as it used to be, to make sure that that person is still taken care of, that that person can do the things that they actually enjoy in this world. It doesn't have to be something as extravagant as I want to take a yacht around the world. I like being in Turks and Caicos every summer. It could just be, I would love to every morning be able to get up, go into my lawn that I own, get on my porch, sip some ice cold lemonade, and read a book. Could be as simple and as beautiful as that. But how can you do that if there's nothing waiting for you at the end of the road? If there's no money that's constantly being put into your account to allow you that freedom, so that you can pay for that land that you own, so you can pay for that lemonade that you own, so that your wife can be happy and make that lemonade that you own, or your husband, whatever that might be. Short-term solution to a long-term problem. God, oh God. All right. It's just like the picture of a donkey dragging a cart with its owner dangling a carrot just in front of its nose. The donkey's owner may be going where he wants to, but the donkey is chasing an illusion. Tomorrow, there will be another carrot for the donkey. This literally goes back into what we were just saying, and I thought this was a really good example that he used in the book, right? Because he talks about basically comparing the donkey and the cart owner to an employee and an employer. The employer dangles a check saying that for this amount of hours, here is XYZ amount of money. Now you in your head are thinking, this is great. I worked this amount of hours. Hold on, come back. See me. We're back. Are we back? Nope. Still lost. See, almost made me lose the example, right? So I'm dangling this check in front of you for this amount of money, and I'm telling you that, hey, great. You're thinking, great. I work this amount of hours. I know what that means. It means I get this amount of money. In the long run, you're thinking that if I keep doing this, I will be okay. Everything will be taken care of. I'll always have a house over my head. I always have a place to eat. I'll always have something to eat. I always have a car to get me where I need to go. I'll always get to go to the vacations that I want to go to. I love working because it gives me the money to do the things that I think I need. Versus the employer who's going, I am happy to pay this man whatever meager amount of money, or woman, let's be clear, man or woman, this meager amount of money, because I'm working towards something as well. I'm working towards my financial freedom. I'm working towards being on that beach or that lawn or wherever the hell else I want to be, because this business, when I'm done, will continue to generate profit. And I will make sure that there was money waiting for me on the other end that will always be pouring into my accounts, that will always take care of my family. So if that means right now I got to give you, call it what? Even if I got to give you $120,000, that is okay, because that is an investment. That is not an expense. That is an investment into my future. Your work is going to propel my company, my product forward. Versus the employee, what are you actually doing? What are you actually investing in by working for this company? Great, you're moving them towards where they want to go, and you're getting a check thinking like, well, as long as I'm getting a check, that's fine. That is the carrot. That is the carrot in front of the donkey, right? And so the example Robert gave was the cart that's being pulled by the donkey, and the donkey only sees the carrot. So he takes one foot in front of the other, keeps dragging this cart behind him, trying to get the carrot. And at the end of the day, guess what? He does get the damn carrot. And guess what happens tomorrow? There's another carrot placed in front of him, and he does the same old thing. I'll take the example a little bit further, because one day, the owner of that cart and the donkey will have to retire. The donkey will be put down in a shed, shot, dead, gone, buried in the backyard. The owner will be in a home, sipping lemonade based off the house that they built because they got their wares to the market every day thanks to the donkey. They will get to see their grandkids run in the front yard and play, and they're going to go to good schools because I got my wares to the market thanks to the donkey. They ate the carrot every day. And then when it's my time to die, I'll be buried in a nice casket that overlooks an ocean. My family will come and visit and pay their respects because I got my wares to the market through the donkey every day. And that's the point. Every day we wake up thinking we're doing something that's going to better our future, but in reality, all you're doing is getting a carrot. You're getting a momentary high. You're getting a momentary delay of the long-term problem of your fear. And the owner, the cart driver, is actually making steps towards something that allows them the solution to the long-term problem. Craziness is we don't even see it. Some of us do. Some of us feel like we can't change it. Others see it and don't care because right now I just need a check. And then some just plain don't see it and just continue to be the donkey every day that gets up and chases the carrot. I think that is where I'm going to stop it here because I think we've talked long enough. My throat hurts. My brain is frazzled. I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed this book. Like I said, I was really, really interested. I was really, really taken by surprise how much I enjoyed the way that he presented his story versus the Rich Dad Poor Dad. And also I just always wondered what the hell Rich Dad Poor Dad meant, like why he was calling it that. I thought it had more to do with like my dad's rich and your dad's poor, but it was literally because he had two examples of two different mindsets. And the bigger takeaway from it is like, it's not even that he's saying that one is poor. Literally one has a good paying job, right? One of them is basically what it seems to be middle class, at worst. And then the other one is like not that much richer than the poor dad, at least not initially. I mean, not initially, right? Because the dad, Robert's actual dad, is the one that tells the boys, hey, go over there and talk to, I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Mike or something. Go talk to his dad because his dad knows how to make money. So although Robert's dad makes good money, he recognizes that I'm not the way to get rich. Me at my job, I think he worked for the school as a teacher or something like that, making a high paying salary. My, call it $150,000 salary is not the way that you get rich. And even though right now they live in the same neighborhood as us, he may not even make as much money as me on paper, or at least take home in my wallet. I can see the workings of he's got multiple businesses. He's building new buildings. That guy one day guaranteed will be rich. And he does go on to actually be rich. And so the thinking is more important than the actual dollar amount. And that's clearly what I think Robert is trying to say here, is that you got to get out the idea of like, it's about how much money you can generate at once or how much your money you're generating right now, but more about how you view money and how it should be utilized as a tool and not a crutch and not something that you should depend upon. And then also, more importantly than that, how if once you recognize that the money is a tool, using that tool to continuously generate more money, and the biggest key, have it generate money autonomously, which again is super, super scary. We'll talk about this in another episode, but super, super scary because there has been a shift in the greed. And this is also, I mean, to talk about correlation, fear and greed controlling the rich. There has been a shift in the mindset of the rich. I'm talking about the uber rich at this point right now. I'm talking about the 1%ers right now, and the desire to want to have more at the cost of self. This is what we're talking about also when it comes to self-destruction. These individuals have truly, I don't know what's happened, but something has gone wrong in the matrix where there is no longer enough, where being billions of dollars up is no longer fulfilling me, because it probably never was going to fulfill you, right? Because they never moved away from the mindset of what it meant to have a dollar and use the dollar instead of having the dollar use you. But now, because of that mindset, we are taking active steps to, one, close off access to people behind us to get to the same levels that we are. We don't want y'all playing in our field anymore because that would be less for us. Two, consolidate all tangible items, land, food, buildings, ownership, all of that. I want it here at the top. And then everybody else will become an employee of material goods, which means I will divvy out to you what I deem is fair land for you. I will divvy out to you what is fair housing for you. I will divvy out what is fair financial value to you. And no longer will there be people who are allowed to just like, oh, I want to go and start a farm in the middle of blah, 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 and, you know, sell my wares or grow my own crops. No, you got to go to a rich person for that because we own that as well. And I think a lot of this is being driven by fear. Fear of what? Who knows? Who knows what they're seeing, what they're hearing? But there has been a noticeable shift in these individuals wanting and desiring more. I want to say thank you all for watching. I was your host, JLW. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, episode 56, right? Because I am counting correctly.